good afternoon, and welcome to our Checkerboard chat. My name is Elizabeth Belew, and I'm coming to you live from the Purina Animal Nutrition Center in Gray Summit, Missouri. I am on the Beef Tech Solutions team with the other folks on this live as well. So I'm going to kick it over to Ted and let him introduce himself.
Hi, I'm Ted Perry. As Dr. Belew said, I'm also part of the tech service team. I've been playing in the tech service role here with Prena for about 25 years now, and look forward to hearing some of the comments and questions that you guys have.
All right, thank you, Ted. We also have Mr. Brady Klatt with us. He is coming to us from Wisconsin. Brady, would you like to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Brady Klatt. As Dr. Belew said, I'm coming from Wisconsin here today. As was also mentioned, I work with Dr. Belew and Ted on the Technical Solutions team, and happy to talk about the weaning programs here today.
All right. Thank you, Brady. So like Brady mentioned, we are going to talk about all things weaning. This is one of my favorite things to talk to folks about, and hopefully what we cover with you guys today is information that will help you guys think about your weaning starter program well ahead before you actually wean those calves this fall. And so when I think about weaning calves or starting calves, I always like to go back to William H. Danforth's four square philosophy to animal management. I think it can really help us in the weaning pen set those calves up for success and really add value to your operation and your production scheme. And so the four squares of that philosophy is good genetics, sound sanitation, herd health programs, and good nutrition. And all four of these things need to work together in tandem to really set those calves up. Obviously, the genetic part, we're not going to change the genetics of those calves during the weaning time, but we can really, help those calves meet their genetic potential potentially by setting them up for success. Things that we can influence during the weaning program is a herd health program, proper sanitation, and nutrition. And that's really what we are going to focus on throughout this Facebook Live. So to kind of kick things off and get into that four square philosophy, we think about the starter program, Ted. Typically, we think of that starter program for about 21 days at a minimum. Can you explain kind of why?
Well, one of the things we think about what we're doing is we're taking that calf, and before he's weaned, like right now, life's good. I mean, if we're outside, we can see the research farm cow herd. Calves are out there with mama. They're grazing, looking for holes in the fence, causing all kinds of trouble. And then life's really good. And then pretty soon it comes to weaning. So if you think of all the different stuff that happens to that calf, is mama's gone, so there's a lot of stress there. He's probably confined in a tighter area than he's ever been in his life. And even though they're herd mates, those calves are going to establish a pecking order. So there's things we can do from a management standpoint to help that. And we're going to talk to some of that. But the main thing the best thing we can do for those calves is get them eating feed. Because once they're eating feed, remember, we're going to have a pretty dramatic changeover for the calf from a health or from a life stage standpoint. But also, we're changing that whole rumen environment. So the rumen microbes have to go from primarily all forage to now we're going to introduce grains and other things and protein sources into that diet that those calves may or may not have had. So it takes, if to start from grass to go to a feed yard diet, it literally takes 28 days to completely change that rumen environment over. So that's why we talk about weaning and starting programs to that 21 to 28 day period.
So, Ted, as we think about sometimes when we're out in the country, we hear, I just need to get the ball out of them. Right. That could be 4 days,
right,
depending on, but thinking long term, that calf, we need to not just get the ball out of them.
If we think in terms of what we're doing, we talked about the stress, but the number one problem we have with weaning is calves getting sick, and it's upper respiratory infections that they fight. From the time they get stressed and they start bawling and everything else, and the irritants, it takes about 10 to 14 days for that to build up enough to where we actually see sickness. So we can wean calves in a pen, like we're going to talk about here in a minute, and 3 or 4 days, they're not missing mom anymore because they found the hay, they found the starter. They think they're fine. The problem is we haven't given enough time to see if those pathogens are going to build up, and that's when we really run into problems. So we need them to be on that starter, very palatable diet if they start getting sick, because driving intake is the key thing. Okay?
Right. And so we don't want to change their diet at the highest possible chance for those disease outbreaks to occur.
Our goal for the first 28 days is to build as many rumen bugs as we can, and you do that by a constant palatable diet and higher intakes.
Yep. I hear that. I got to just get the ball out of them, and I just always go back to what happens in that first 14, 21 days that could be negatively impacted if we don't keep them in a starter program. So the other, one of the other squares that we talked about was herd health, proper sanitation, all of those things. And we're going to touch a little bit more on that square at the second half of this presentation with the Purina Plus program. So I want to just dive into this management piece. And so on the screen behind me, we have a pin that has a lot of great things that we can talk about from a pen design standpoint. And so, Ted, if I think about, some of the things on this screen, we have water, we have feed, we have a tub, we have hay, we have placements of all of those things. And we're going to talk about each one of those individually, okay? So let's start with the feed bunk, okay? So, Ted, you always joke that cattle have one social grace, and it's they don't talk with their mouth full, right?
That's right.
And so if we think about the tub, or the feeder place, maybe Ted, you can elaborate why we put that tub.
Well, apologize, folks, for having some technical difficulties there. What Dr. Belew is going to talk about is feed bunk placement. So in the picture there mentioning, you might have saw that they had the calves at the feed bunk at the side of the pen. But the management strategy that we had there is the bunk was actually placed perpendicular to the fence line, right? So the reason we do that is because as we wean calves and they have a tendency to walk the pen, they're going to hit that feed bunk. And when they encounter that feed bunk, naturally, we'd like to have feed in there, and that's going to help them get more quickly adapted to that diet and get them consuming feed, as Ted and EB mentioned previously, right? So novel feed stuff, it's really important to get that bunk perpendicular to the fence line and getting them encountering that feed right away. Ted and EB, we just kind of covered the feed bunk there.
Sorry, I think we're back now, but Ted, maybe just explain to them a little bit about Headspace. How much Headspace do we want?
There's two things that to think about is, like EB said, calves don't talk with their mouth full. As Brady alluded to, we would have that perpendicular so they run into it. If you have this that they don't run into anything, calves will just continually walk around. You probably all seen that, circling, looking for mama. Some data out of University of Guelph years ago said that they will walk 25 kilometers, a little over 12 miles. Now, that's a long way. But the whole time they're doing that, they're one, draining their reserves, and two, what else are they doing? They're bawling. When they're bawling, they're irritating the back of their throat, and that's where those pathogens start. So one of the best, we always talk about intake being so important. The reason being is if we get them to stick their head in that trough and get a mouthful of feed, they'll shut up. And then once they're quiet, then they quiet down. And the number one stress reducer for a calf is a full belly. So if we can get them to eat something and calm down and lay down and get over that stress, they're well on their way to starting out.
Right. So they need to get nutrition in them.
Yep.
So how much space generally are we thinking per head?
Well, and this is one of the things that we have to be careful of. We need to have, in a bunk space like this, we need to have at least 8 to 10 inches. I prefer a foot if you can do that. Because and that's both sides, of course. But the key thing of, if we don't have enough head space, guess who gets all the feed? The bigger calves. The smaller, more timid ones, they won't go and eat. So now we can set up a situation where, say, after 10 to 15 days, we've got half the calves started on feed, the ones that could get to the feed bunk, and the other half isn't. So adequate feed space for everything is important, so to make sure that everybody gets the diet that they need.
Yeah. So I know it's super easy to just put that feeder along the fence row.
Makes chores a lot easier.
It makes chores a way easier. I've done it, let's be honest. But I think in this situation, when we're starting calves, it's really important to get them off on feed quickly. And that's one quick way to do that. The other thing I always like to talk about is water sources. So in this image, you have, there's 2 water sources. You have an automatic water and you have a tank or a water trough, whatever you want to call it. And when you think about calves out on pasture with their moms, typically, most instances, not every cow herd is going to be on automatic water, okay? So they're going to know how to drink out of an automatic water. Probably not. They're going to stick their head, push that ball down. The ball is going to come flying back up, spray them in the face, and probably going to hinder them to want to come back up and drink water later. And also, too, with an automatic water, they're only one calf really can drink at a time. And we know that water drives intake. And Ted already talked about how important intake is from getting those calves started. So I would strongly encourage you guys to put in another water trough, water tank in that pen as those calves are starting or, freshly weaned, what have you, just to provide enough water source to those calves. Ted, anything I missed on that?
No, but when we see a tank like this, again, it's perpendicular, like Brady described. But the other thing is, a lot of times with automatic water is, if a calf's really thirsty, he may not be able to really tank up and get all he wants. And we want them to, again, calm down, settle in, low stress. We want them to get as much water as they want. And a big tank like that really helps. Now, after they're on, then you can go with the automatic water.
Yep.
But to start cattle out, and the other thing, if calves have never seen tanks, I've seen some people, they'll drip a hose over the top of the tank and just really small. And that dripping water, it draws the calves to it because, they hear the water and then they can go check it out because they may have never seen something shiny like this before.
Yeah. And, too, right, if like I said, if one calf figures out how to use that water, they could camp out on the ones that need water, might not be able to get the water. So just put an extra water source in there, let those calves drink what they need, helps drive that intake.
Yep.
Okay. The other thing in this pen, we have a hay ring, okay? So, depending on if you're using a starter program that has, hay recommended to be fed in that program, we need to be thinking about free choice hay, okay? Free choice hay means free choice hay, okay? Doesn't mean I'm going to let them clean it up and put a new bale out tomorrow. We really need to have free choice hay. Having enough hay rings. Ted, how many calves per hay ring roughly?
You want around 15 to 20, 25, somewhere in that range. But one thing I'd also, and maybe you're going to talk about anyway, is when you get this tombstone effect in the middle. You want to spend a little bit of time talking about that?
Yeah. I call it muffin top.
There you go.
And so, when that hay, they eat all the hay and then they can't reach it anymore. And so we need to make sure that we spread that hay out, right? Yeah, it might look like there's a lot of hay out there, but if it's shaped like that, there's a good chance that the distance from that hay to the calf's nose or to the shoulder is about as far as they can reach. So they really can't access it if it's like that. So take that hay, spread it down, make sure that those calves can consume it. And then the other thing with the hay situation, depending on if you early wean some calves, maybe they're a little smaller, what have you. Sometimes you can get into an instance where the hay ring is too tall potentially, and they can't reach their head in there whenever it gets really low to the ground. So I know, we want to use our hay resources the best we can, Ted, but making calves clean up hay in the weaning program, probably not the best situation to happen.
Another thing that sometimes we don't think about, make sure that watch the height of this bunk, because if the bunk is for cows and it's 3 feet high, a lot of the smaller, more timid calves, they can't go up and get to that. Okay, so we want to make sure that that's no more than 18 inches. Same way with our hay ring. And one of the things I forgot to say when EB asked how many, a good rule of thumb is no more than 1.5 calves per spaces you have on your hay ring. Usually that's about 25 calves per hay ring. Okay, but some of them are built differently. And they're all kind of different configurations, but that's one of the things. 25 calves is a good rule of thumb on that. But one of the things that we see is these are built for cows, and some of the newer ones, they have that higher bottom bunk or that bottom trough, so cows can't drag hay out. That saves hay, and it really saves hay when calves can't even eat it.
Right.
Okay. So
probably not the best for their growing program, but yep. So the last thing that I want to touch base on is this stress tub. Okay. Our Purina Wind and Rain mineral tub with a Vela 4 is an excellent option as well. In this picture, the tub is empty. Okay. Ideally, we would like that tub to be full when you start the weaning program. What's really cool about these tubs, as cattle lick them, they start producing saliva. That saliva helps buffer that rumen, and then, those calves can get on feed just a little bit quicker. The other thing that I really like to use these stress tubs, Prena Stress Tubs, or the Wind and Rain Vela 4 tub, is for timid, green, hard starting cattle. Typically, those cattle aren't going to be coming up to the bunk right away. So let's place these tubs in the back of the pen where these calves hang out. And as they lick that will help them transition over. They're 225 pounds, 25 to 30 calves per tub. Now, if you have 30 calves, you probably need to put 2 of those tubs out just to make sure that we have enough surface area. Yeah. But generally speaking, I said this tub was empty. In the weaning program, once you've gone through a set of tubs, you're good for that 21, 28 days. Now, if you're going to keep them on for the growing program, you need to bring mineral back into that diet. But generally speaking, once they use a tub during this time period, you're good to go. Yep. Anything, Ted, that we didn't cover?
No.
Brady, did we miss anything?
Well, one thing that I might add there, Dr. Belew and Ted, you can comment on this. We talked about getting a microbial population built up in those calves, right? And when we're thinking about those timid calves, and maybe those are those smaller, younger calves, that tub can be a great tool to help build up that microbial population because of an energy standpoint. Ted, do you want to maybe expand on that a little bit, what we're doing with the microbes there?
Yeah, well, we talked earlier, and it's a really good point, Brady. If we think about if I'm a rumen microbe, what do I need? I need a protein source. I need an energy source, and microbes use sugars, and the sugars from the molasses will really help jazz up those rumen microbes. And by getting the rumen microbes growing, they're going to digest feed. And one of the key things, if I'm a new calf, I go and eat a little bit of hay. The rumen microbes have to digest that hay. So if I'm eating tubs and hay, I'm building up rumen microbes. They're going to eat more hay all the time. That's going to drive hunger, which is going to drive intake. And then as the calves drives intake, they feel better. And then they start watching the other calves eating out of bunk. So, but those tubs, they really help jumpstart that rumen population, if you will. And that's a really good point, Brady. Without those timid calves, they're out here eating nothing. We see intakes take longer to jumpstart when they don't have that product.
And and say, Ted, you got some of the tub left, and your calves are gone. It's an excellent mineral opportunity for your cows out on pasture. So
I mean, with either the stress tub or the Vela 4 tub, you've got the full range of organic traces. So if the calves eat it up, Like we're weaning in the fall of the year, we're weaning up, and I want to get rid of it. I probably don't want to save it all year. Go ahead and put it out to the cows because that'll do the same thing. It'll jumpstart them. Think about it. We just weaned the calves. Now mama's got some chance to build body condition scores, and tubs are an excellent source on that as well. So they work for everybody.
Absolutely. So those hopefully are some things that you can incorporate into your weaning program the next time you wean calves from a pen design standpoint. I want to transition a little bit now here to another square of that 4 square philosophy, this proper sanitation, good herd health program. And that's really where I'm going with this Purina Plus program. Brady, I know this is a really new program for us. And can you provide some context of what is Purina Plus? What's the value of doing a Purina Plus program?
Sure, Dr. Belew. So Purina Plus, pretty simply put, is a value-added program that Purina just launched recently this spring. And what we're looking to do there is take the success that we found in our starter feeds and our starter programs and really pair that with some of those other management strategies, right? Good sanitation, appropriate management, and basically package that up as a way for our producers to utilize what we have for reputation and those management strategies to bring more value to their calf crop. Simply put, it's a value-added program that has components featuring our starter feeds and pairing that with the vaccination and deworming protocol.
Brady, how is this, or why is this different than other value-added programs currently out there in the market?
That's a good question. So what we're doing with Prena Plus, we really wanted to focus on a couple things, and those being flexibility and whatnot in terms of putting the program requirements together. But the big thing was value. And so what we hope to do is add all of those vaccine and deworming protocols to the nutrition strategy. And that nutrition strategy that we have is a complete nutrition strategy, meaning that we're basically setting the foundation for success by getting those calves to the bunk, getting them the nutrients that they need, so then those vaccines and dewormers can work more effectively and hopefully bring a better, healthier calf to the marketplace.
So if we think about Purina Plus, it's a multi-faceted program, right? There's certain qualifications and so forth. Can you dive into a little bit of what those qualifications look like?
Yep. So, first thing that we start with is those calves need to be on and weaned onto one of our Purina starter feeds. So one of our 3 options there: AR starter complete, Precon complete, or a stress care product. From there, we're going to have vaccination components. Pretty straightforward and not really anything different. We wanted to focus on vaccination protocols that have been proven within the industry. And so that's going to be 2 rounds of a clostridial, 2 rounds of a viral administered as a modified live, and then we're going to pair that with a Mannheimia hemolytica or a Pasteurella posted shot as well. On top of that, we also have some deworming parameters. So that means that producers need to either utilize a oral dewormer or an injectable dewormer for internal parasite control. And then we're also going to pair that with some external parasite control in the forms of flies and mites and whatnot with some additional products. So not really going to overwhelm anyone right now with exacts in terms of what specifically needs to be there. The important thing that we maybe want to focus on is that your Purina dealers have an approved list of products and really a roadmap in terms of implementing the program for maybe those producers who already have a weaning program and have been successful with maybe utilizing Precon or AR starter or a stress care product. Making sure we get those right vaccines and dewormers might be a small step. Similarly, if we have a producer who maybe isn't implementing a weaning strategy right now, the Purina Plus program can be a great way to get all those boxes checked and have a lot of support in terms of getting that program implemented from your Purina dealer and some of the other great industry leaders that we have working on the program.
One thing I'd like to point out, nice job summarizing, Brady. For those of you who probably already figured it out, Brady runs that program for Purina, so that's why he can say all of those great big
words that and spit them right out, which I can't even begin to. But he's doing a really good job with building this program, and I'd like to thank him for all his work he's put in, because it's been a ton of work. To build a program like this takes an incredible amount of work, and Brady's done a really good job over the last year of building that.
So if you get questions, we know exactly where we're going to.
That's kind of what I was getting at.
Right? Okay. Yeah.
Brady Klatt.
You can drag on Ted and I, but we're probably going to go to Ted.
We'll ask Brady.
We'll go to Brady. Yeah. So I really like that this is a multifaceted, value-added program. It really combines that whole 4 square philosophy. Me personally, I'm really glad to see that there is a deworming program included in it.
So why would you? I mean, there's lots of programs out there, and we're kind of one of the first to really be specific. Why does that matter? Isn't deworming dewormer, or a wormer a wormer?
Well,
sorry, couldn't read this.
A wormer is not a dewormer. Okay. That's a whole nother conversation we can have. But when we think about what internal parasites do to cattle, I mean, they rob nutrition, right? Yeah. And if we're trying to set these calves up to gain, and they got internal parasites that are stealing those nutrients from them, we're kind of counteracting ourselves, right? So we want to use a good quality dewormer. And again, like Brady mentioned, we have a list of those approved dewormers that are really designed to get those parasites out of the system, resolve the issue, and get those calves toward growing.
One of the things that you've taught me that I think is interesting, we talk about intake, and calves that are full of worms, the worms decrease intake. They decrease appetite. So there's kind of a double whammy. They're eating less because of the worms, and the worms are stealing a bunch of nutrients. So that's much less it gets to the calf. It's
not a good situation. So me personally, I like talking about parasites. So that's probably why we're spending a lot more time on that subject. But again, good vaccination program, good deworming program tied to a really good nutrition program. Speaking of nutrition, okay, Brady, you mentioned that it has, a starting program and a growing program. Let's maybe talk a little bit more about those feeding options. So, Brady, you mentioned we have AccuRation Starter, Precon, Stress Care 5. Then we're going to transition to a grower ration. But let's think about those starters. So, AccuRation Starter, Brady, can you describe that in a little bit more detail?
Yeah, sure. So, as you mentioned, calves on the program are going to get weaned onto one of those 3 feeds, and they're going to be on there for about 20 days. And we'll kind of go through each of those 3 options right here. So AccuRation Starter Complete, we would kind of divide these products a couple ways. The first being either self-fed or hand-fed. AccuRation Starter Complete does have intake modifying technology in it, so that's going to be a self-fed product, meaning that we want to make sure that those calves have access to that at all times, and that's going to be probably in a self-feeder. And then the next facet or the next divider that we might have is complete or supplement, and in this case AccuRation is a complete feed, meaning that it has all the vitamins and minerals that those cattle need, as well as protein and energy, but also forages. So this means in terms of utilizing AccuRation, we don't need to provide additional hay. That forage to get that rumen environment going is going to be included in that product. As we move to the next feed, we'll touch on Precon next. So if you've been in the cattle business, you've probably heard about Precon, and it's really the gold standard in terms of getting cattle to the bunk and getting them eating those nutrients as quick as possible. So Precon is going to be a hand-fed product, meaning we're going to provide that daily or twice daily in the bunk, and that is going to be a complete feed as well, meaning that it has adequate forage, vitamins, minerals, protein, and energy within that feed. So we do not need to feed additional hay to those cattle. And the last products that we'd have would be like a Stress Care 5 supplement. Now, Stress Care 5 is going to be a hand-fed supplement that needs to be fed in addition to forage resources. So if we have a quality hay on hand that's a homegrown forage that we want to utilize with our weaning program, using Stress Care 5, again, fed once or twice a day, can be a great tool to get some legs out of that forage, and that Stress Care is going to provide the adequate protein, energy, vitamins, minerals, and so on and so forth.
One thing I want to mention on that Stress Care 5 is we want to need to make sure that that hay is greater than 8% protein just to help meet the needs of that calf. If it's lower quality, lower gains, higher quality, potentially higher gains, right? But we really need it to be greater than 8% protein.
Yeah, and the forage quality is key with the Stress Care 5 program because it will drive. We want producers to use as much of their own forage as possible, but the higher the quality of protein, that is certainly where we want to start with these calves. And we've had some folks, they talk about, well, I'd like to, save that for cows when they calve. That may be that's a good strategy, but when we're starting these calves and going through the 45-day growing program that Brady's talking about, we want to maximize forage intake because that way we're going to maximize rumen development. We're going to maximize gain on those calves. So we've got the best product that we can sell at the end. So forage quality is key. That's a really good point.
Yep. And one thing to mention too, regardless of what starter program, Accurate Action Starter, Precon, Stress Care 5, we want to incorporate that Purina Stress Tub or Purina Wind and Rain Avail4 tub in conjunction with one of these products. It just sets those calves up. If you got those timid calves, they're not coming to the bunk, they're not eating. So my recommendation is always, incorporate these tubs in that starter program. They are not by any means a sole starter program. We need to use them in conjunction with these different these starters.
If you think back to our earlier discussion, what the tubs do is they set the rumen microbes up and set the rumen up for a win. So they're almost a pre-starter. They can help get going. The other use that we see once the calves are started on feed, if they move to a different, if you're going to take a starter and then move them to a grow yard where we may have some more remingling, it's not a bad idea to take some tubs with them. You kind of got a little pacifier while they go through another transition.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, I know different parts of the country right now are experiencing different available forage resources, different situations are happening. And I know that, we've all heard the saying, right? If it's not broke, don't fix it. Right. But I would, think every year, right, to think about what resources you have, what hay sources. Maybe you don't have the hay you had last year, so Stress Care 5 is not going to fit your operation this year, or you have hay and you want to try Stress Care 5. So I reevaluating your starter program year over year, depending on your goals, is not necessarily a bad thing.
Well, and that's, and it's just human nature.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I mean, and we talk to producers all the time. It's like, we use Precon. We've used Precon here for 50 years. Thank you. But I can't guarantee that that's the best starter every year. And I think it's worth, and you may not change, but I think it's worth the effort to have the conversation and maybe look at some economics as to what's the best program for our herd this year with market, forage availability, forage quality, all that different stuff.
Right. Or you don't have the labor resources that you had last year, and you don't have, someone to go out and feed twice a day, and maybe Accurate Action Starters where you need to go because it's a self-fed product and you just need to make sure the feeder is working. Calves look good. Everything's working great. So, we can go back and forth which starter is the best, but really it comes down to what your goals of your operation are, what resources you have, and so forth.
I think it's interesting because one of the fun things we get to do on our team is we go all over the country. And almost everybody in the company over different regions, they have their favorite.
Mm-hmm.
and which is great, but they have found that this starter works really good in their region with this dealer and this co-op, which is kind of the beauty of having a wide range of start. We've got starter feeds, but we really have a starter program, and we've got a bunch of different options on that you can pretty much mix and mix things up and get to exactly where you need to be for your calves for this year's availability.
Mm-hmm.
So Ted, Dr. Belew, maybe just want to jump in and clarify some things based off of what you just said there, and maybe you can expand. But you know, we talked about this being a 45-day program, a minimum of 45 days, and they're going to be 20 days on one of those starter feeds, and then as Dr. Belew mentioned, we're going to transition to a growing diet. So really there, in terms of putting the program together, we wanted to just allow some flexibility. And right, Ted said everyone has their favorite starter, but in that growing phase, there might even be some more options. We kind of thought about doing that from a standpoint of, bringing those calves to market in a favorable condition and program based off of the operation, right? So thinking about how that changes across the nation, Ted, that opens up a lot of possibilities, right, for different programs and opportunities that can be tailored to their specific needs, right?
Right.
Yeah, and there's two things that you brought up that are interesting. As we get around the country, different parts of the country want a different calf. Some want a little more. Some areas want a little flesh on the calf because they know that they're eating. Other parts of the country, they would like them a little thinner. And a lot of times when they're a little thinner, those calves are going back to grass to be made into yearlings. So the beauty of what we're doing is you can mix and match and fit all of that to fit into your program to what your market needs. And this brings, I think we've covered it, but I just want to pick on Brady a little bit more. Brady, one of the things that we helped, or one of our goals with Prena Plus was to make sure that Prena Plus is a program by itself, but it also fits with existing programs. So do you want to take just a few minutes and talk about how that kind of all fits together? Say, if I'm a select back person, and I like select back and it works good for my calves, can I still do Purina Plus, or do I have to pick and choose?
That's a great question, Ted. So for those of you aware, select back would be a value-added program put together by Zoetis, and so that basically it'd be very similar to Prena Plus, and it's 2 rounds of Clostridioids, 2 rounds of virals, and then a deworming, and that Mannheimia hemolytica or Pastorella shot as well. And so taking a step back in terms of putting together Prena Plus, we found some existing programs that we had that worked internally, and really then went to Zoetis, Elanco, Merck, BI, and really talked with them and consulted on implementing their products to fit with our programs and really have them working in concert. So to specifically answer your question, Purina Plus calves can be their own entity and they can be marketed that way, but you can also co-brand those calves provided you're meeting both the requirements, say as Purina Plus and Select Back, or Purina Plus and Market Ready if you're choosing to use BI products, and just the same way if you're using Merck products as well with their Prime Back program. And that's kind of something that we really wanted to emphasize outside of those value-added programs as well, right? So there's no requirements for things like implants or antibiotics. If you're choosing to utilize a natural program, there might be an opportunity for us to make Purina Plus really amplify those efforts, just the same as if you want to use an implant strategy on your calves, that's still an opportunity for you as well. Really, we want to just utilize Purina Plus as a foundation for success and amplify the other efforts that you have in your operation.
Thank you.
Yep. And so I know we got a little bit more time here, guys. And Brady, I really appreciate you bringing this Purina Plus program to us and talking about it. But I want to talk about one more thing, okay? And it's a really exciting, and it's not that the other stuff wasn't really exciting, because it was.
I'll just say,
but this
going pretty good so far.
Okay. And so that's our RX3 immune support technology. We launched this a couple years ago now, Ted. It's crazy. It's crazy to think that it's been a couple years. Tom's moving pretty quick on this. RX3 immune support technology is incorporated into all of our starter programs. So AccuReaction Starter, Precon, Stress Care 5. Ted, can you tell them what RX3 is?
Yeah, as EB said, it is really exciting because over the years, how many times today have I talked about rumen microbes and feed intake? Well, what RX3 is a combination of prebiotics and probiotics and essential oils that do multiple things. That the prebiotics and probiotics, not only are we putting beneficial rumen microbes into that rumen, okay, so we can help jumpstart that calf, just like we talked about the tubs and everything else. But then there's also the prebiotics are basically rumen bug food. So we can, it's starter food. So, puppy feed or whatever. It gets the rumen microbes started as much as we can. And then the essential oils actually have some health properties, or they help with heal the lower gut, keep it's called leaky gut syndrome, but basically it helps with overall gut health. So we're putting beneficial microbes in, we're feeding all of the rumen microbes to grow more, and we're helping keep with gut health. And RX3, where'd that come from? It's basically 3 R's. The calves will recognize the disease challenge sooner, they will respond appropriately, and then they will return to feed sooner. So that's where we get the 3 R's. But just know that we added it to our starter feeds to make the starter feeds even better than they were before. So, and we're really excited that what we're seeing from the field is it's working extremely well, and some folks are very happy with it.
So, if you have some more questions about what RX3 immune support technology is, please do not hesitate to reach out to us. We love talking about
we can
it.
Answer that.
That can go to Ted and I.
Yeah.
Prena Plus, remember? Brady Klatt. And so if you got more questions on that, give us a call, 1-800 number, email us on the website, what have you. Ask us questions in the chat here. We'll get back to you on that. I don't see any questions coming in from the live side of things here. So what I think I'm going to go do, guys, Ted and Brady, I really am really appreciative of you guys joining us today for our Facebook Live. I'm glad to be back, be able to help with this Facebook Live.
Did you tell them why you were gone?
I did not tell him I was
You
gone.
need to.
Ted had to take care of last Facebook Live because I had a baby, and he did a great job.
I didn't get to take care of the baby.
Covering as the moderator for that. But I am happy to be back. Brady, thank you for joining us from Wisconsin. I'm going to wrap this up. If you got any questions, just reach out to us, and you guys have a great day.
Thank you.